All right, so I've started the recording. I know people are signing on still, but I'm going to go ahead and get started just to be respectful of everyone's time. So, thank you all so much for joining our meeting of the RVAgreen 2050 Environment Working Group. I feel like it's been a while since we've met, but it's really only been 3 weeks instead of two. So, glad to see everybody who was able to make it. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And Kyla, if you don't mind putting this link to the slides in the chat in case anybody wants to follow along, that would be awesome because I can't see the chat anymore. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. What we have on deck for today, we're gonna do our normal kind of settling in routine, talk about where we are right now in the RVAgreen 2050 process with our draft content and what we're getting ready to do, which is very exciting, namely our community-wide engagement, which will be taking place throughout the month of April. We likely will not use all of our meeting time today, so hoping to give you back at least a few minutes of this beautiful sunny day, and we will wrap up with some next steps that we'll look forward to after April at the end. So our objectives today are to achieve consensus on the draft content that we've created together so far for the environment pathway of RVAgreen 2050. We're getting that ready to go out to the full community in April through our month-long activities of community-wide engagement. So we'll take a look at that. And then we'll also spend a few minutes together getting your ideas and feedback on how we can conduct this community-wide engagement in ways that you all can help us as part of this process. So as always, starting off with our ground rules, don't want to call any particular ones out for today, just remember what these are. I think we talked about this last time, but we can keep adding to this throughout this process. So as you all are continuing to have your other Zoom meetings and virtual activities, if you hear of one that you like, please bring it to the group. All right, so here's where we are right now. We are towards the end of March. We have been working together for several months now on setting a foundation for the RVAgreen 2050 planning process together, namely through equity training and other activities. And then over the last few meetings, we have been drafting actual content for RVAgreen 2050. These are our objectives and our strategies. Where we're heading next is to this month-long period of community-wide engagement to take a look at what has been drafted so far. And we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the later end of our meeting. We'll also talk a little bit about, sort of give you a preview of what to expect this summer when we come back together to take in all of that community engagement feedback that we get hopefully over the next several weeks. So today we are going to be looking at the strategies as we have for the past couple meetings. And again, these are our SMARTY actions that will help us meet our objectives and goals for RVAgreen 2050. And this is the process that the strategies have sort of been through over the last several meetings. So just in case you've missed one here or there, just need a refresher. We started with a preliminary list of strategy ideas from you all and from Richmond 300 and best practices from other cities. We met and took in your ideas for applying those different kinds of examples to Richmond. Then we put all of the ideas through our equity screening tool and worked on refining the language of our strategies to make them meet some of the SMARTY criteria. So we want to make sure that these are strategic, actionable, that sort of thing. Since our last meeting, which was earlier in March, we have done a couple of things. All of the strategy content has gone through a few sort of phases of review. Obviously, internally, our team has been working on compiling all of your feedback and doing things like allocating strategies and feedback from other working groups to where they might be more appropriate. For example, one of the strategies that came out of the transportation working group came over to our end, that sort of thing. And then the community working group, which is made up of professionals in areas like social services and health and other fields, took a look at all of the strategy content and provided a little bit more detail and their feedback on what our initial thoughts were around the main sort of goals or components of the equity screening tool. So they were able to help us flesh out some of the information related to, the positive impacts on health, how we could use these strategies to increase affordable housing or create jobs and things like that. And then lastly, over the last, week, the Racial Equity and Environmental Justice Roundtable has also looked at the strategies, provided their lived experience, expertise, and feedback on all of the content. And then we also, as those of you who work for the city know, we opened up the draft strategy content to feedback from city administration and leadership and staff from other departments to get their input as well. So it's been a long process in a short amount of time. The strategies are in their sort of what I'm calling quote unquote final draft stage right now. And we want you all to look at them. And that's what we're going to get started with on our meeting today. Just a little bit more context before we jump into the actual content of the strategies. This is more of a reminder, but at this point, we're still staying a little bit higher level with our language in terms of what's actually in the strategies. So we are not getting yet to the level of specificity of, do this by this time. Here's who's going to do it. Here's how, we will do it, with what budget or resources or whatever. We have collected a lot of that feedback from you all and from the other groups that I just mentioned, and we're saving all of those details to come back to this summer. So you'll see, if you've already taken a look, or as you review the strategies over the next few days, you'll see that they are still actionable, but they don't contain a lot of those details, because we will be coming back in our summer meetings, May through about July, together to take in the community engagement feedback that we receive, and then looking at some of those other components of the SMARTY framework. So timelines, metrics, how are we measuring, success with each strategy, implementation details, so getting down to the nitty gritty of, for example, if we have an urban forestry master plan, where are the priority areas, what components are within that plan, that sort of thing. How can we create accountability mechanisms to make sure that we are meeting the kind of like purpose of that strategy, all of that. So we're not getting to that level of detail yet, but we will be. So just keep that in mind as you take a look at the draft content. All right, so the next few slides, if you looked at this already before our meeting, you will have seen, it's a lot of text. I am not going to read through this because that would be ridiculous. All of the objectives are, those have not changed since our last meeting. I think the only one that I'll note, and I'll get to this, is objective 4, which is still relatively newer than the other 3. What we have done is tried to organize the strategies into buckets or topic areas, just to make the content a little more digestible, especially as we get ready to go out to the community with this. So for example, under our first objective, which is all about how we as a community engage with the natural environment, is divided into these 4 sort of topic areas, and you'll see the strategy language under each. Again, I'm not going to read through this, but I do want to let you know that nothing has been removed. If it was an idea for a strategy at one point in any of our discussions, we have kept that in to start with, like a pretty broad and big list of strategies now, and we will be prioritizing later. So hopefully everything that you all wanted to see is going to be in here as you review. As staff, we have tried to combine ideas where it makes sense, and maybe there are some ideas that came up along the way that were, for example, really specific that we're going to save for implementation, things like that. But nothing that we have gotten in terms of feedback has been lost. So just keep that in mind as you're reviewing. So what we're going to do is allow you all to take a look at these on your own, essentially. We would like you to provide any final thoughts, questions, well, I had this idea, where did it go? We can help you. We can definitely provide that information by next Monday. So that'll be your homework. So that's why I'm not going to read through these right now. So we have objective 2, which is all about increasing resilience from extreme heat and drought. And then, as you'll remember, objective 3 is the same thing, but looking at precipitation and flooding. And then I did want to note that objective 4 now has actual objective language to it. Before, it was just sort of this idea of having another objective that addressed things like air quality and ways that we can use the natural environment to take greenhouse gas emissions and carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, which is carbon sequestration. So that one is a slightly newer, but overall, we've all seen this content at some point in the recent past. So are there any, so again, that's going to be y'all's homework, is to take a look at this by next Monday. We'll send out the links, all the materials that you need to look at this. But does anyone have any questions or thoughts right now on this, this point in the process? No. Okay, great. That was 7 seconds, so we're just going to keep going. So what we had planned now is a 5-minute break, but since we are only 14 minutes into the meeting, I'm thinking you all are probably good to just keep going, and we can give you back a little bit more time at the end. I know I am, and if someone who's 8 months pregnant can get through the rest of this, we're probably good.
Ouch.
If you need to take a break, please do so, but I'm going to keep going in terms of our presentation. Okay, so we have our draft strategies. Hopefully, again, you all see your ideas in there. I'm really excited to take these out to the community and get their input. So we wanted to talk a little bit more about what we're actually going to be doing to get this content out to the community, and then also ask for your help. So on April 7th, Mayor Stoney will be doing his weekly press briefing, and our community engagement coordinator, Kendra Norell, will be on with him to make the announcement that RVAgreen 2050 is once again open for sort of public engagement. We've always had ways for people to engage in the process, but this will be a specific period of a few weeks where we're asking some more pointed questions and for people to look at the draft content that we've come up with so far. So we will be putting out everything that we've drafted. This is going to be the vision, objectives, and strategies. And we will have, our office will be coordinating a bunch of things that will happen during this few-week period. So I wanted to get into a little bit of that. We'll be emailing you all with all of these details. So we're still definitely putting everything together right now. So more information will be available in the next week or two, but generally we will launch everything with that April 7th announcement. We're going to have a couple ways that people can view all of the draft content and provide their input. We're still focusing on digital engagement to be, as safe as possible as we continue to deal with COVID-19, but we will be doing some in-person engagement or person-to-person engagement this time around that I'll talk about. We will have, if anyone is familiar with the tool Conveyo or participated in the last round of feedback participation for Richmond 300, you will have seen this before. It's essentially a way to put a PDF online, and you can put comments wherever you want. That will be for anyone who wants to look through all of the information, all of the details, and provide any form of feedback really that they would like to. We will also have a different way for people to give feedback that isn't as intense or maybe technically oriented, which will be through a survey where people can indicate what their desired sort of areas to provide feedback are. So if you're interested in transportation, affordable housing, we'll have like a list that you can click, and then somehow magically you'll see the strategy content that relates to those areas. Still figuring out how to really do that, but that's what it's going to look like. So those will be the two main things we're asking people to do. The way we are funneling everyone to those opportunities is going to be through weekly newsletters. We will have an engagement toolkit that you will all receive that'll have, graphics and suggested content if you wanted to do like a blog or social media or anything like that. We will have some flyers, digital and printed, frequently asked questions. That's probably all I can think of right now. We will also have weekly themed RVAgreen Gab events. So these will be Thursday, sort of happy hour style, informal discussions. I think we have a couple of you actually slated to participate in some of these, which is awesome. But these will be short, again, informal, where we have a few people from the community who have participated in our process so far talk about their experience, their work, and then people will be able to interact and ask questions. The idea being that they come and learn a little bit about our process and things that are already happening on the ground in terms of y'all's amazing work. And then we funnel them to, okay, now please provide your feedback on what we've drafted so far. So those are the main ways that our office will be engaging with the community. And again, we will be communicating all of these things to you all through email, and you can also stay updated in a number of ways online if you'd like. In addition to that, we are working with our Racial Equity and Environmental Justice Roundtable on individualized plans where they are going to be reaching out to their communities in different ways, using things like door-to-door paper surveys, canvassing their neighborhood with like door hangers and things like that to do some targeted outreach. Is there anyone on the roundtable who is currently on our meeting right now who would like to talk about their plan for engagement for a second? No pressure, I'm looking at the list. And if not, we will jump into our group discussion. Okay, it doesn't look like it, but we've gotten some great ideas from them on how they're going to be engaging their communities in different ways. And so what we wanted to do is have a similar discussion with you all now. We're going to break out into two smaller discussion rooms. Half of you will be with me, half of you will be with Kyla. And basically we want to ask you all for your help in engaging the community, the whole Richmond community, and specifically your community, however you define that, personally or professionally. We want as many people as possible, especially those who have not participated in planning processes before, especially those who are on the front lines of climate change, who are being impacted by these issues, as well as just everyone else who obviously has a stake in all of this to participate in our process somehow. So the questions that we have for you all for this just 15, 20-minute activity that we're going to jump into are, what are your ideas for engaging your community? So has anything that I've said struck you as like, oh, well, I could easily take, the social media toolkit and put that out to my audience for my organization? Or, well, I want to have, a smaller group discussion, something like that, like however you would like to collect feedback. And then for us, how can we support you in those activities that you might want to have yourself? So if it is something like, well, my civic association has its regular meeting during April at this time, and they would love to hear about this. Let's have one of our staff members come and attend and talk about it if you'd like. and then get people to give feedback. We're happy to do that. We can do things like provide materials. We'll be putting together a lot of stuff, digital and print, for this. But if there's anything specific that would be helpful to you, we want to hear those ideas. And then the last question, and I'll put these in the chat so that you can reference them. The last question is whether for this engagement period or for future ones, because this will not be the last time that we go out to the community with all of this content. Is there anyone, do you or someone you know have any particular skills that might be helpful in reaching broad communities? This could be lots of different things. Like maybe you have a friend who is a copy editor and loves doing that stuff and can help us like review a document or something, make sure that it isn't full of jargon and acronyms and all of that. I don't know. Or, you have someone who, I don't know, brings together people through like some sort of social group, something like that. No idea. Whatever y'all's ideas are, we want to collect them now. We don't have to act on them given that April is just a few days away, necessarily right now. So this can also be for later, but we wanted to put that out to you. So before we go into our breakout rooms for about 15 minutes or so, any questions on what we are asking or what we are doing during April? Any other details I can provide at this point?
Coming in under 7 seconds. If you were going to characterize, how would you characterize the distinction between the April community engagement period and the August and September community engagement period?
Good question. Let me go back to this slide so we can use this as a visual. So I think in terms of actual activities and what is happening, it will likely be similar, but there will be different questions probably that we're asking. So at this point, we're asking folks to look at content that is a little bit more general. We're going to be asking questions, for example, through the survey, like, what is your vision for your neighborhood to make it more equitable, healthy, and resilient? Do these strategies, these ideas, get us to that? If not, then what's missing? And then also within these ideas, we will be asking in some form how which of these is, if you had to pick 5 out of 10 to be implemented by 2030, something like that, which of these would you choose? So a little bit more general. And then in August, it's going to be a lot more specific information. So I'm not sure about the exact questions we'll be asking, but by then we will have timelines, responsible parties, and metrics associated with each of our strategies, which we don't right now. So that will be the information that goes out at the fall engagement period will be much more specific. And hopefully we will have less strategies at that point too, because it'll be a lot of content. So I know, Rob, that doesn't fully answer your question, but does that help?
It does. I think the struggle still in my head is we've got track laid, and there's always the dance between, as you go out, here's our track, what do you think of it? Versus as we go out, here's what matters to you, how does our track align with that?
Mm-hmm.
And those are two really different frames. And I think it's important to make sure that we have access to both of those, right? It's really easy to get all excited about how good our work is and then force folks into that kind of funnel. And our work is lovely. I mean, I'm co-chair, you better believe it. And it could be that what we find out in the world is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no matter how good our process is, and our process has been better than many and most, and it's a pandemic, and online is different than analog, and a barbershop is a different experience than a smartphone, and all of that, right? So
definitely, yeah, great points. Thank you, Rob. And I'm hoping that, so Yes, I think one of backing up a little bit, one of the goals with this engagement period will be just to get more people to know what this is in general. Like bring it to a wider audience, um, and so we know that. So as part of that, we are also making sure that there are ways for people to participate, or at least learn, become aware, be involved however they would like, if this is their first time ever seeing anything like this. And then we have the more specific, well, if you're ready, then here's all this content to take a look at. We're hoping that with the engagement that we did last year during April, where this was again mostly Kendra Norell's work, but the one-on-one sort of community listening sessions, looking at other plans and sort of like neighborhood community-based uh, like type documents or lists of priorities and all of that, that we have targeted some community priorities that will help this already be more relevant. And then hopefully we're at a good starting point for, okay, we know y'all have said you care about this. Here's your entry point into what we're talking about. So definitely room for hopefully everyone to enter where they are, and we want feedback really in any form that we can get it. So thank you. Any other questions or comments at this point, or anything anyone from my team wants to add about our community engagement?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we talk about how we ensure that representation is distributed how it should be? I don't see that in the questions, and if Kendra, if that's like all she's going to do for a month, that's cool, but it's still a month timeline. So like, how do we make sure that we reach all Richmonders in that time frame in these ways?
Yes, good question. So how do we make sure that we reach all Richmonders? We're gonna get it. We're gonna do as best as we can.
One,
Yeah.
every last
So what we're gonna do, this slide is the one I meant to look at, in terms of an accountability mechanism for really like the engagement efforts that we undertake as an office, and anything that you all and our other stakeholders help us with. One of the things that we have come up with so far to help us with this is that we will be doing, as part of the two main ways that people will be providing feedback on this draft content, as well as anything collected through like the roundtable. We'll be getting demographic information, as well as demographic information, but and this might be included technically in that, but location information. We know people probably might not be comfortable with providing their address, but Kyle and I were actually talking about this earlier today, and we're going to have a way for people to give us like a point on a map, or their neighborhood, or whatever level of information they're comfortable with, in addition to their demographic information. And we will be putting out in our weekly newsletters a like heat map, or like some charts and things like that, as a check-in to ourselves, but also to make it transparent that, hey, so far this is the sort of community we've been reaching. We clearly have gaps in X, Y, and Z. We can probably predict what those are going to be now, just even thinking about it. So we are thinking about it ahead of time. But with that, we're going to try to be a little bit more targeted, so that we don't get to the end of the whole thing and say, well, we really didn't reach this population. So that's one way we're going to be keeping track of how we're doing. And then we're also, thinking about that ahead of time. I think the roundtables activities will help us a lot with reaching communities that we didn't before. Everything will be, translated into Spanish, so hopefully that helps. And then Kendra obviously will be doing all of her targeted outreach to like our partners in the community, with our toolkit and anything else that can be helpful to having them be the trusted voice that helps us spread the word. So we hope to do a little better than we did last time. Next time, we hope to do a little better than we do this time, and keep going like that.
So Conveo lets you capture demographic information
It doesn't, but we'll have
other ones.
everyone directed to the same demographic and location survey when they're doing any form of any of this, so that we are collecting all of that information. And I'm thinking we might have like a question on that demographic / location step, which will be like GIS based, but how did you find this? So we know, did you do the Conveyo PDF, or did you go the survey route, or did someone just tell you and you stumbled on this link? Great, either way. But that way we can continue to be targeted through these different processes. And any ideas y'all have on, any of this are more than welcome.
I'm going to say a couple things. One, we're only as effective in communicating as we are aware of the audience we're trying to communicate to, right? So I'm not sure that all the resources will be accessible to all the people. And it's probably, right? I mean, what we know at Groundwork is that part of our job is translation, right? Between those of us, even at the round table level, right, who are community engaged, et cetera, but those of us who kind of live and breathe this versus those for whom it shows up as asthma, hospital visits, a flooded basement, et cetera, right? So there's that piece. And as much as I love how detailed our materials can be, and I think we have to find ways to make them, and I'm sure that's on the landscape, but I'm just going to say it again because it makes me feel better, to make them simple and accessible for part of our population. The other thing, and it's tacky and whatever, but one way that's proven to drive participation in online stuff is, complete our survey and enter yourself in the drawing for the XYZ kind of dealio, right? So, I mean, it doesn't have to be a whole lot, but that notion that, you might be able to get a free Chipotle, or, we got a gas card or whatever, right? It helps sometimes.
Yeah.
For folks that, don't feel like they want to do a survey. Oh, but if there's gas card, anyhow. All right. So those two things.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Rob.
Rob, do you feel like the entering for the gas card is for the RVA survey, or once we get the demographic data? Because ultimately we still won't know who we've reached or where we've reached, who and where, if we don't get the demographic information as well.
I am not that far in the weeds, so can't help you. But in the places that you think it's less likely for folks to respond, and there's two different less likelies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you don't, I mean, you don't have to give out a gas card for everybody to participate, right? It's like, put yourself in the drawing, and,
right.
Folks, somebody gets, $20 worth of gas, right? But both, and I would probably say,
mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe like one set gets gas and the other set gets Chipotle or whatever, I mean, whoever the city's got a lovely relationship with, as long as it's not Chick-fil-A. I didn't say that. I did. Sorry.
Last time we did t-shirts, and I don't know, we could spice it up though.
I love mine, and how useful it is in the world of like making my life run could be open to debate.
I want to see you in that t-shirt, Rob. Just
kidding. We did have a question in the chat, Brian.
Yes.
About whether there city council offices have been coordinated with around our engagement.
Yeah, so Alicia, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you be comfortable talking about your engagement activity interaction with city council offices in the last, I guess, few months?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. The short answer is yes, we're coordinating with city council. We've been keeping them in the loop, sending them our monthly newsletters. And then in terms of specifically with the April engagement, we'll be sending them the toolkit the engagement toolkit that you all will be receiving, and we're essentially been trying to get on the calendar for council committee to brief them as well. It's just frankly a tough time of year with the city budget and lots of things, so we've been getting bumped, but we hope to be able to get on the council calendar. So at the very least, they will be getting the toolkit and emails from us.
Thanks, Alicia. And I know in addition to that, Kendra has presented at least one recent city council like district meeting. But that can definitely be something if you all are involved in your district, efforts, initiatives, please feel free to spread the word that way.
Yeah. Hey, Brianne, I asked that question because of, just thinking about getting in front of really the city council as the way to get in front of the neighborhood associations. And specifically, there've been, a few, we can kind of see the specific associations that we'd probably want to connect with very early through what's been going on around Richmond 300. And just, I guess, like, is there like a maybe that what I can do in the feedback is like provide some of those specific groups. Yeah, that was just kind of, I'm excited to hear that, Alicia. That's really great that they're aware and have been involved. Just trying to ensure that people that in each district that tend to, say that they weren't consulted have every bit of a chance to get in front of this early.
Yeah, and I'll just add real quick 2 other things in terms of city council. We are also going to be doing quarterly presentations in front of the Planning Commission, since RVAgreen 2050 is part of Richmond 300 and essentially is partly going to be essentially implementing some of the things in Richmond 300. So we've timed our first presentation to be in, I think it's April 5th, whatever the first April date is. So that was specifically to align with our engagement. And then also I'm on the Green City Commission as the city's representative. So the Green City Commission, one of their 3 priorities for this year is supporting RVAgreen 2050. So they are setting up one-to-one meetings with all of the city council members. And so one of the things they'll be talking to city council members about is RVAgreen 2050 through there. So again, not most likely specifically the community engagement phase, but RVAgreen 2050 in general. So I'll just add those 2 pieces.
Awesome. Thanks, Alicia and Jeremy. Mary, I saw you waving your hand. Did you have a question or comment? I was
just going to note that at least for the 4th district, there's an overlap issue between our agenda and the casino proposal for taking 61 acres of wooded area. And I think that our particular district would be particularly interested in this.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we're kind of getting into what our discussion is going to be actually in our breakout rooms. So as you all, hopefully this has been great, and hopefully you all now have some specific ideas, which we're going to ask you to put on sticky notes or just voice once we hop into our breakout rooms. Does anyone have any, sort of general questions about what's happening in April or anything? Though we'll be coming back to this, so no worries if you don't have them right now. Thanks, Jeremy, no problem. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and set up our breakout rooms. So again, I think Kyla put these questions in the chat, or someone did a few minutes ago, so you have them. Just to show you what we're going to be asking you to do, back to our old friend sticky note. You all have the link to these slides. We can share that again if you need it. If you are not able to edit the slides for any reason, please feel free to just voice or chat your input during the next 15 minutes or so. So our questions are, what are your ideas to engage your community? Again, that's however you define it. That could be your professional community, your personal community. How can we help as the Office of Sustainability? So are there materials we can provide to you, whether it's specific things that I've mentioned so far or not? Are there, meetings coming up that might be something where we could get 5 minutes to sort of pitch this, anything like that? And then last question, as you're thinking about all of this, whether it's for this April engagement period or a later one, because again, this will not be the last time we go out to the community. Do you or someone have any specific knowledge, skills, contacts, whatever, that could potentially help us with community engagement, knowing that we're a small team and you all are doing this out of the goodness of your hearts and bringing your lived experience and technical expertise to help us. Any additional support that we can get, we want to be able to take advantage of. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms and we will reconvene. We'll just say at 2 o'clock for kind of a group debrief and a couple more things before we break for today. So hopefully that worked and you all will be directed into breakout rooms. Okay, hey, breakout room 1. I'm going to, just in case you don't have it, put the slides back in the chat because I know there's been some questions and things floating around. So if you'd like to navigate to slide 16, that's what we're going to be working on together. Or again, just say out loud what you are thinking. So what we want to hear, what are your ideas for engaging your community? How can we support you? And is there anyone in particular we should maybe connect with on any of this? So feel free to take a minute to think about it and then just shout out your ideas while we're here in our group to brainstorm.
Brianne, can you help me to get to slide 16?
Yes. Are you, Mary, if you click on the link in the chat, does that actually open up the slides for you? And if not, I will just share my screen so we can all look at it.
I am. Okay, I've got this. Let's see if that gets it to me. Doesn't seem to.
Okay, no problem. I will share my screen so that we can all be looking at the same thing together. There we go. All right, so who's got an idea?
You want to engage the civic associations.
Mm-hmm. Or do you have any specific, like, for example, we have a list of civic association email contacts. Is that, yeah.
Use the list that they have in planning and development review that they provide to developers who need to do community engagement. But also I would engage the friends groups that are for our city parks and recs and open spaces that are out of Richmond. I think that they're going to be also another organized effort that can help to communicate out and maybe like-minded.
Awesome. And are those typically, those groups, typically reachable via email, like some sort of?
We should be able to get a list from in Richmond.
Awesome.
Brianne, I will email you a group of 5, names of 5 or 6 groups and contacts that occur to me.
Perfect. I'm going to put that on, I'm going to make a new list for homework.
There are a host of weekly or bi-weekly newsletters related to the environment that go out. Parker, I know you guys put out a newsletter every so often. True Timber is a huge range of organizations that publish those that I suspect have a different range of readership. Just publicizing the engagement efforts and what's been done to date there would be easy, and I'm sure a receptive audience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Maggie. I would say anybody who's a partner of the initiative should be able to announce it, whether that's Groundwork RVA, Capital Trees, Capital Region Land Conservancy, James River Associate. I mean, there's so many that can get out the word. But that means that we've got to have kind of a schedule, something that can be, or a community survey of sorts.
Mhm.
Yeah, and a tight sort of messaging blurb that we want them to be sharing.
Yeah. Are you guys planning to approach churches? Because that's certainly a good way to reach
Yep.
Some of the segments of the community that aren't reachable
Mhm.
through environmental groups.
Yeah, so I'll just say on actually both of these points, so we do have like a giant list of sort of organizations, not as many individual churches, but some sort of umbrella organizations for congregations and things like that, that we have gathered over, the last couple of years. What we can do as well, Maggie, to your point, is create that tight messaging blurb, and then as you all receive these, because you're all on the list, if you want to forward on anything, we can provide you with this blurb, and or we'd love to be connected with whoever, puts together the actual newsletter so that we can keep them posted more directly on activities in the future as well. So, but that's something we can put together that will hopefully be helpful. If you've got this much space in your newsletter, here's something you can just plop in for us or something.
Again, do you have PTAs included? They may be meeting by the fall, and that's a good way to, again, reach a group that you would not otherwise reach.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't think we have individual PTA groups, but Mary, I think that's a good idea to add to our list.
And you should be able to get the cooperation of the principals on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so keep throwing out ideas. I see a couple people have put these in.
So the other thing I will mention, I think the churches are a very strong portion of this, but we're talking about underserved communities, and they don't have a lot of the structural civic associations or other kind of support networks that we're listing here. So I think that whether it's COVID or not, certainly we need to do a door hanging campaign in some of these communities that are not currently served, that are our target communities. And if we can, once we know what the rules with COVID will be at this point, even do some limited door knocking to talk to neighbors rather than just simply leave behind a door hanger. I think that is going to help with the kind of the trust that we need, because otherwise it could appear that we're helicoptering in and helicoptering out, which is not what is going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the research on political canvassing shows that door knocking is better than anything else. So you're right about that.
Great, yeah, and that
speaking from experience.
Yeah, door knocking, leaving behind a door hanger or a flyer, that sort of thing has definitely been one of the top ideas for the roundtable members for their specific neighborhoods that they'll be targeting. And so we'll be providing those materials to them. And that's something, if any of you are interested in doing something like that, if you feel comfortable, we're more than happy to provide, something to come along with that. Like here's a one-pager, FAQ document or whatever it is to help you with that. Looks like we might need more Post-its, but also feel free to just put ideas in the slide notes if you'd like. One additional question I was going to ask, and we're gonna ask this at the end of the meeting actually, are there other events going on in April that we might, like the audience might be interested in the kind of thing that we're working on. I know like Shiver in the River, I think is actually wrapping up this month. So maybe not that one, but anything like that that's.
It's not April, but you've got Dominion River Rock in May.
Mm-hmm.
What about Earth Day? Is anybody doing anything for Earth Day this year?
All virtual.
All virtual. Okay.
Mhm.
Do you, Parker, are you able to tell us any more? I haven't heard anything about like Earth Day plans. So is there something specific happening?
No, I mean, we're doing Earth Month with just limited volunteer opportunities, hiking opportunities with guides, some webinar programming. There's earthday.org that has put together a lot of information, and James, is it James Monroe University? Is there a not James Madison, is there something in Northern Virginia that's got like
George Mason?
George Mason.
Thank you. Yeah, George Mason might have put together something
Okay.
that has like an app for like citizen scientists to help engage, and maybe through that app we might be able to get some data that could be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And this might be more applicable to the second round of community engagement, but the Virginia Pride Festival is usually in September.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that could be probably a lot of folks who are from outside of Richmond, but certainly a large Richmond presence as well.
Awesome.
And we're happy to post any of this, as you get the social media packages together, posting it through our university social media outlets and like the university Telegram, which is like our little daily newsletter, all those sorts of things.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. How about does anyone like have ideas for like your personal networks, like your neighborhood that you live in? How would people, like, I know for my neighborhood, everyone, if it's not on Nextdoor, then it's not happening. So that's like, but I know neighborhoods are very different across Richmond. So any ideas there for kind of specific neighbor to neighbor engagement or anything like that?
Well, say I'm going to send you a couple of lists on that are specific to my neighborhood.
Awesome. Okay.
Although I guess I'll make a generic one, because one of them is going to be my, I live in a condo with 144 units, and there are a bunch of condo associations, and ours has a newsletter, for instance, and we organize informational activities. I bet the other condos do the same thing. So let's say condo associations.
Yeah. Mary, do you have any, I'm just going to add that to the list. Is that mostly digital engagement, like a email newsletter sort of thing?
That, and sometimes, for instance, I may arrange a informational meeting for our condo, depending on, it probably won't get more than 10 or 15 people, but 10 or 15 people are better than nothing.
Yep, definitely. Okay, cool.
Has there been any consideration to a media campaign utilizing radio or television?
Not specifically. We are pretty limited in what we can do in terms of media engagement. Let me.
But they could do a PSA if we start really getting public engagement.
I'm gonna mute Mary's mic. Okay.
Brian, do you just mean that as city employees, you can't be doing that outreach?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Is it something you would want to have members of the working group doing? Or is that not?
I mean,
I just don't know where the line is that you all can or can't cross.
Yeah, I think it's we don't reach out individually or anything as an office to like media outlets. All of that sort of communication is done through the Office of the Press Secretary. But we have certainly had like questions come in, and we're able to provide more information if, you know, a media outlet is doing a story on something, things like that. But I know there are like, you know, some not neighborhood based, but maybe community type news outlets that if you all wanted to reach out to with these opportunities, that would be awesome. We can provide, you know, blurbs, materials, things, graphics, things like that for any of that as well.
So is the Office of the Press Secretary doing any of that sort of larger scale traditional media outreach?
And I'll just clarify that if it was something that was media related that cost money, we don't have the budget for it at this point in time. But if it was something that was media related that was did not cost money, then it's certainly something we could look into. We would just have to coordinate with the press secretary's office and make sure that they were comfortable with it and on the same page. So that just want to make that distinction.
Thanks,
So,
Alicia.
Yeah.
And Maggie, right now, the only thing that what we have sort of on the books is that April 7th announcement during the mayor's weekly press briefing, where we will be on through Kendra Norrell, our community engagement coordinator, with some visuals and the announcement about all of the opportunities to get engaged, and the press will have the opportunity to ask questions during that event.
Got it.
A question for you, Brianne. Where are you guys with city council at this point?
So we talked to that a little bit earlier. And so over the last few months, this is really through our sustainability manager, Alicia Zatkoff, who's on now. But we've been interacting with individual offices to give them updates on RVAgreen 2050. She will also have the opportunity to present to the Planning Commission on April 5th, so right at the beginning of this, which is great timing. And then we've had at least one presentation to a city council district meeting in the last month or so, which was a virtual meeting. So they are getting those updates
When was
as
that?
well. What'd you say?
So we should contact our city council people and tell them to get off their duff.
You said it, not me.
What was the one district meeting you had?
What?
What is the one district meeting that you all had?
That one was for the first district, Councilperson Addison's district. So I want to take about one more minute unless y'all want to keep.
I think Kirsten would be responsive.
Awesome.
She is.
So what, any other, well, y'all have access to this the slides as usual. Feel free to keep putting your ideas. Reach out to me also as you think of things, or hey, have y'all thought about this, or do you have this type of material that I can use for this kind of thing? Always happy to do that. We won't be meeting in April, which is purposeful so that we can concentrate on these efforts. But before we go back to the main room, any other ideas that you want to throw out there?
Well, for any social media stuff, if you do have like a prize you're going to give away, I know a lot of brands will do like tag your friends for extra entries. So you could
tag your friends.
Yeah, like it's like there's like different ways to increase your entries. So tagging friends and like the comment or sharing the post or whatnot will up your number of entries, and that might be a good way to signal boost. Our office in the past has bought I think it costs like about $100, but it's like a zero waste kit from this online store. Anyways, it's been very popular, and we've gotten like a lot of responses, a lot of engagement with our posts where we offer that as a prize.
Oh, that's the actual prize. Gotcha. Is that like TerraCycle or one of those sorts of things?
No, it's from this store in New York. I think it's called the Zero Waste store. But I can look up, I can find the actual thing and email it to you.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah.
All right, so one more minute if y'all have any other ideas before we reconvene with the rest of the group. This has been super helpful, so thank you everyone so much. Wyatt, I'm just going to call it a zero waste toolkit, and then you can let me know.
Yeah, sure.
$100 might be a bit above our budget, but
Yeah.
we could get some inspiration at the very least. All right. If you'd like, go ahead and exit the breakout room and we'll rejoin everybody in just a few seconds. All right. Looks like this might be everybody we still have. So hopefully you guys had a great discussion like we did in the other breakout room.
No, we had a better discussion. We're just, I mean, let's just be clear.
Ours is recorded, so I'm going to go back and check that. Any ideas anybody wants to share? Just a couple minutes group reflection, anything that came up that was like, oh my gosh, we did not think of this before, or y'all should definitely do this, or anything like that that you want to throw out there?
Everybody in our breakout room is really hoping that ours wasn't recorded right now.
Well, now I'm definitely
only recorded the conversation. I stopped right before the jokes.
You did jokes without me? Oh, you're all fired.
We had Jen.
I was going to say, if they were Jen's jokes, we want to hear them.
I do, sorry, I'm not going to tell a joke, but I did have a thought that was something that I don't think that we've brought up yet. And I'm not sure if Richmond Public Libraries is a member of a working group, but Justin mentioned that using them as a way to get information out does, I mean, it does put you in almost 9, it puts you in 8 districts and you reach a lot of people. So I did want to float that as, you know, of course that's a partner agency, but we could try to rely on them heavily to share information in both digital and print form without needing to be there all of their operating hours.
Awesome. Yes, we do have a librarian from the
It's Broad Rock
Library on the community working group. So we have an in, but that's a great idea.
And that reminded me, the DPU bill inserts, that could be an option too.
Mm-hmm. I definitely. Go ahead, Jen. You have a lot more experience.
Well, unless you're already on it, I'd plan ahead for fall because I like.
Jen, can we do that? Plan ahead for fall now, since
yes.
Like otherwise it'll be fall and we'll have to plan ahead for now.
Yeah, no, we can definitely plan ahead for fall. Brianne and Alicia, if you're not already talking to Marianne, I can help. But
does everybody know what we're talking about? Right.
I don't get bills, so I don't even know. But when you open up the mail and you're like, oh my gosh, what's this kind of ugly flyer? Or they want to sell you something with your like utility bill from Richmond, from the city of Richmond.
I'm going to tell that that's how you describe the inserts for the DPU bills.
Did you think they're pretty?
Oh, yeah. No, but they're useful. And many, I just had this conversation the other day. It's like, oh, all you people that use stamps.
But I guess I do have a question about that, because when I think about inserts that come in mail, I'm like just going to the thing that I need. So how useful, I mean, I personally think that a lot of people in the world are like me when it comes to like excess paper. And so how useful would, I mean, it is a way, so somebody will get reached, but.
So if I may, I'll touch on what I know from the inside, which is that we don't see a lot of responses to what we put on there. So including that we try to incentivize things like send us a picture and you'll get a $25 credit. We do think of it the same way though, Kyla, like it is a way, and we can't not do stuff in print because a lot of people rely on print. Rob, they are not aesthetically pleasing in my own personal opinion, because they're still using Microsoft Publisher from 1997. So I think, but the Office of Sustainabilities will look different, and that means that maybe it'll get more eyes. It's also a tricky moment in time to be pitching something to somebody, because we're also saying, hello, you owe us money. Also, here's some information. So it's not always the favorite piece. Like, I mean, I don't even get our utility bill, but I don't like it when I get bills, period. So it's not like you're like mail and then you're like, oh, I didn't want that one. So a way, I'd weigh cost and benefits versus other ways of getting stuff to people in print. Personally, but I use them, so.
Thanks, guys. Any other ideas that stuck out to you from our discussion? No? All right. Well, I've got some folks I'm going to follow up with if you don't reach out to me first. Looking forward to any additional ideas. You can email me at any time with other things you think of. If there's something in particular, some opportunity that comes up during April. Oh, well, I've got this thing now. If you can provide me with X and Z, I can fit you into our whatever it is. Please keep us posted on any of those sorts of opportunities. So just sort of wrapping up now, we already looked at this slide, but again, just looking ahead, we've really reached one of our milestones in this process at this point, which is having something that the community can look at and react to in regards to what will eventually become the RVAgreen 2050 action plan, which I know for me is extremely exciting, having been working on this for a few years now, and along with some of you all. So we really appreciate everyone's time and input over the last several months of this process. And also want to remind you that this is not the end. So we do have a break in our meetings for the month of April, but then we will be coming back together over the summer, most likely going to be less frequent meetings. So these will be like once a month kind of, or once every 4 weeks sort of thing, to take a look at what we get in terms of community engagement feedback, and then start to prioritize and make more specific and strategic our strategies. So just a couple things I wanted to wrap up with. We will send out the recording from today, as well as the slides and the PDF that had the strategy language for you all to take a look at. Please get us any questions, comments by next Monday, so that we can go ahead and wrap up finalizing the content for the April engagement community period. Our next meeting will be sometime in mid-May. We haven't scheduled, so if you're wondering, you don't have anything on your calendars at this point, or you shouldn't from us anyway, we'll be reaching out about that in the next probably few weeks. And then just some logistical notes. We've been using Zoom, but we'll be switching to Microsoft Teams, which is a pretty similar platform for future virtual meetings. We are going to be staying virtual for the foreseeable future. With these meetings, maybe one day we'll be able to like meet up in a park or something, but we can get to that later. Just generally, and I'm thinking we might just send out a quick survey about this so that you can be thinking about it. We have had at least a couple people who this time of day might not work for them as well, especially looking into summer, kids' schedules, there might be things changing. So I'll probably send out just a quick poll to check in on whether we want to keep our meetings on Monday at early afternoons, or if there is maybe a different time of the week that would work better for folks, especially as we think about that May through August, or really July period. So for now,
Leanne, are you going to poll about Zoom versus Teams too? Because some of us have pretty strong preferences.
That unfortunately is not an option for us. We have to switch to Teams. This will be something, if you are attending any other city meetings, they're all teams meetings. And so that is what we will be using. We will provide, you know, some materials on how to use the platform if you're not familiar with it. Yes, and once I have this baby, I'd love to have a drink with you, Rob, and talk about Microsoft Teams, but not right now. For now, we're going to wrap up as usual with our feedback survey. Kyla, if you don't mind putting that link in the chat, that'd be great. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so if we can see each other. If anyone has updates, upcoming events, or resources you want to share, please shout them out or put them in the chat, especially anything happening in April that we could put in our newsletter for this month, which is going to be going out at the end of mid next week, at the end of March, basically. So if there's anything that we can highlight that y'all are doing, whether it's an event or something like that, please let us know. And then I just wanted to say goodbye for now, because I will be taking maternity leave over the summer. I will likely be back in August. And so I'll miss your next few meetings, but you will be in great hands with Kyla, and she will be assisted by our amazing colleague Kendra, who you all, many of you know, while I'm out, and you'll have a lot of fun with them over the summer, taking the strategies to the next step.
Hey, Brianne, you can't come back unless you send them baby pictures that they share with us, because otherwise we won't believe you since we haven't seen you.
I know, I feel like I'm not doing this, but like I am definitely pregnant. So
hey, I put the shirt on for you.
I'm not standing up right now.
Yeah, understood.
There will be at one of these meetings, there may be a baby who makes an appearance. We shall see.
but for real, congratulations
Thank
and
you.
all good things for a birth. And do send pictures, because baby pictures make the world much better.
I know, like who even cares about strategies when I can send you baby pictures, really? Okay, so what are your announcements, things happening? What do you want to share with the group before we disband for now? I see a couple of things in the chat. Oh yes, Rain Barrel Workshop, awesome. I would like to do that. Thanks, Justin. Oh, keep Virginia cozy. Cool. Okay. Anything else? Stop our recording.